Good morning. It is Sunday, March 29, 2026. This is your deep dive daily briefing. I am your anchor, delivering a comprehensive analysis of the pivotal events that have defined the last 24 hours. We begin our broadcast on the world stage, where the strategic landscape of the Middle East has entered a phase of intensified kinetic activity following the definitive expiration of the 5-day military reprieve. Reports from regional monitors and news agencies confirm that the brief pause in major operations has been replaced by a series of high-intensity strikes. United States and Israeli forces have resumed coordinated air campaigns targeting Iranian ballistic missile infrastructure and command centers in several provinces. This escalation occurs as the humanitarian situation reaches a critical threshold, with the number of displaced persons across Lebanon and the wider Levant now estimated at over 1.2 million. While certain diplomatic channels in Geneva remain open, the rhetoric from the new Iranian leadership suggests a transition toward a prolonged war of attrition, casting a long shadow over any immediate prospects for a regional ceasefire.
Transitioning from the front lines of conflict to the broader global economy, the narrative is being shaped by the market's visceral reaction to the breakdown in peace talks. Crude oil prices, which had moderated during the brief diplomatic window, have surged by over 7% in the last 24 hours. Brent crude has moved back toward the $102 per barrel mark, reflecting deep anxiety over the sustained closure of the Strait of Hormuz. This volatility is complicating the 2026 growth projections recently issued by the OECD, which had already lowered global GDP expectations to 3.2%. Economists warn that if triple-digit oil prices persist, the global economy faces a significant risk of stagflation, particularly in energy-dependent manufacturing hubs in Europe and East Asia that are already grappling with the friction of new trade surcharges.
In the realm of finance, all eyes remain on the credit markets as they process the implications of a prolonged wartime economy and sticky inflation. Sovereign debt yields have touched new year-to-date highs, with the 10-year United States Treasury note reflecting a flight to safety and a revaluation of long-term risk. The financial sector is also navigating the aftermath of the recent Federal Reserve policy meeting, where a hawkish hold was maintained. Investors have now largely dialed back expectations for interest rate cuts in 2026, pricing in a higher-for-longer environment as energy costs continue to fuel inflationary pressures. On Wall Street, this has triggered a notable rotation toward defensive sectors, with institutional capital seeking haven in aerospace, defense, and specialized energy trusts to mitigate the mounting geopolitical tail risks.
Turning our attention to the technology sector, the focus has shifted toward the resilience of global semiconductor supply chains amidst regional instability. Leading hardware manufacturers have reported that the ongoing conflict is beginning to affect the procurement of specialty chemicals and gases essential for advanced lithography. Despite these headwinds, the industry continues its massive build-out of artificial intelligence infrastructure. Major cloud providers have confirmed that the first production clusters based on the Blackwell Ultra architecture are currently being deployed for internal testing. However, the global power ceiling remains a formidable barrier, as the projected requirement for an additional 92 gigawatts of electricity by next year is forcing tech giants to accelerate investments in alternative energy sources and dedicated modular nuclear reactors to sustain their localized tech ecosystems.
Finally, we look at the logistics and supply chain networks that serve as the vital arteries of global commerce, which are currently facing a period of intense structural rewiring. The Strait of Hormuz remains effectively closed to commercial traffic, forcing major ocean carriers like Maersk and MSC to maintain the Cape of Good Hope as their primary routing. This detour adds up to 14 days to voyage times and has triggered a structural shortage of vessel capacity, effectively removing 10% of global carrying capacity from the market. Logistics providers are warning that even if a resolution is reached soon, the ripple effects on port congestion and equipment availability in hubs like Jebel Ali and Salalah will persist for months. As a result, 72% of trade professionals have now prioritized regionalized supply chains and AI-driven inventory positioning to bypass these volatile maritime choke points. That concludes our global briefing for today. Thank you for joining us.